Good day, learners. Welcome to the second session of a 5-part series focused on instructional materials. In this series, we aim to be able to, first, personally explain the instructional materials and its importance, examine the different principles in the selection of instructional materials, investigate the types of instructional materials and tools, analyze factors affecting the selection of media for instruction, and evaluate the selection purpose of instructional materials. But in today's session, we will examine the different principles in the selection of instructional materials. Are you ready? Let this journey kick off. Quality assurance. Have you heard about this term? It is a systematic process of confirming that the quality of a product, output, or services meet the ideal standard. Selecting instructional materials must also undergo quality assurance. As educators, it is our duty to maximize the teaching and learning experiences we give our learners. Thus, we educators should check the instructional materials, or IMs, internally, analyzing both the breadth and depth of content so that student learning is optimized. Externally, we must also utilize these materials to help our students understand the concepts or procedures which we are teaching. When instructional resources are carefully chosen, we may promote student successful development of learning. They will retain their active part in the teaching and learning process, and they can further develop their understanding of the subject matter. Yes, all of these are dependent on how we select instructional materials. Let us now take a look at the 5 principles in selection of instructional material. The first principle in the selection of IM is appropriateness. IM must be basic or supplementary to the curriculum. It should fit the topic that we are presenting. For example, not just because you have watched from YouTube University how to make several materials that would create an exciting explosion, it does not mean that you should use it in teaching grammar. Because what is the relationship, right? My point is, in choosing instructional material, it should not just be interesting per se. It should be appropriate. It should be complementary. There must be a specific relationship between your instructional material and the content that you are teaching. The first one is appropriateness. The second is authenticity. Our IMs must present accurate, up-to-date, and dependable information. If you remember, in our previous session, I spoke about instructional material is also the learning content. Well, when we teach our student, where do we get the information? Do we look at news that are considered as fake news? Do we get books that are published from 1935? It should not be. Remember, our instructional material must not only be appropriate, it must also be accurate. The third one is the cost. The materials that we use for teaching should not be expensive. As long as the materials that we are using are captivating and it catches the attention of our students, then it is considered as an effective instructional material. If a certain medium that we are using is quite expensive, we must be creative and innovative enough to look for alternative. Just make sure that whatever we choose can deliver the same content, or it can even supersede our previous expectations. Remember that when we talk about cost, it is not only limit to money. Time is also considered. So when we look for instructional material, we should also consider how much time do we need to make or search for it. I remember what a great writer once mentioned, that a lost time is a lost opportunity. So let us make sure that when we look for instructional materials, it must not be time consuming. Just a quick recap: appropriate, authentic, and practical. The fourth one talks about interest. Every IM that we must utilize should stimulate curiosity or satisfy the learner's need to know. At the same time, it should have the power to motivate and encourage creativity and imaginative response among users. When the instructional materials that we use is no longer interesting to students, then it defeats the purpose. Let me just give you a very practical example. When you hear a certain joke over and over again, it kind of loses its power, doesn't it? And it's the same. An instructional material may be interesting, but then if it is overused, it may lose its magic. That's why we should make sure that the IMs we use captivate the interest of our students. The last principle is the principle of organization and balance. IM must be well organized and well balanced in content. The purpose of the material must be clearly stated and perceived. There should be logical organization, clarity, and accordance with the principles of learning, such as reinforcement, transfer, and application in the materials. Remember that IMs must not only catch the interest of the learners, but it must also promote the general and specific goal of the class. That's why we should check its vocabulary level, the difficulty of the concept, and its method of development, and its interest appeal. Consider also its appropriateness to the intended level of our students. Remember, instructional materials are essential to promote better learning, and that principles must guide us in choosing, in selecting instructional materials. And these principles are authenticity, appropriateness, cost-effectiveness, interest, and balance. And also, we must understand that our choices have an impact on our students' learning. Thank you for joining me in this learning session. Remember, parts 3, 4, and 5 are coming up. So why don't you hit like and subscribe right now so that you will be updated when the next video is uploaded. Thank you once again, and see you in the next episode of Learning Journey with Dr. Jerry.